Good afternoon. Welcome and thank you for joining our June commercial seminar. My name is Jenny Ching. I'm with KW Commercial, and I am your also your 2022 Education Committee Chair. So I'm very happy today that we are able to invite Terry Moore, CCIM, to tell us more about the 10 mistakes brokers and investors make with income property investments. A friendly reminder before we begin, all participants will be muted during the meeting, so please use the chat box for questions and the speaker will answer them during the Q&A session. And today we will also have Mr. Lee introduce our speaker and the topic today. Mr. Lee, take it away.
Thank you, Jenny, for that introduction. This is the first time, and welcome, Mr. Terry Moore. We tried to arrange you for last year's seminar, and somehow you are so busy. And guys, we have a very, very powerful speaker today. Mr. Terry Moore himself was a CCIM. I'm going to give a little bit brief introduction on him. His team has closed over 500 triple net transaction in San Diego apartments. His team exceeds the closing rate of 90%, more than twice of the rest of the multifamily listing in San Diego. So he is a big hitter. So we can learn a lot from these sessions. And he has also written a book called Building Legacy Wealth, How to Build Wealth and Lead a Life Worth Living. So Mr. Moore, if you want to talk a little bit about your book at the end, that maybe we can buy, how we can buy it, that would be good. He has won more than 12 countywide awards for brokerage excellence from San Diego Association of Realtors, the San Diego Daily Transcript, our city magazine. These are some of the things that he wrote in the magazine and in newspapers, San Diego County Apartment Association and San Diego Commercial Association of Realtors. So he has a lot of background in commercial real estate. He was a former national faculty for CCIM, so he's teaching the CCIM class. And I want some of you guys, regular residential realtors, to try to join the CCIM. It's a very good class. Less than 5% of the agents earn this designation. It's like the PhDs in commercial real estate. So it's something that we should appreciate. He is also adjunct faculty for the National Universities of Real Estate MBA program and the UC San Diego Extension program. He has published over 100 articles in different publications, as mentioned in some of my magazines and newspaper prior. He graduated from Southern Methodist University with an MBA. His BA is for Oklahoma University. He worked in B of A in La Jolla and El Centro branch as a loan officer, and he also was a former corporate planner in San Diego. So this is Mr. Moore. Go ahead, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and I hope that this time is relevant for you. So in the presentation, hopefully this will be more worthwhile than what I had planned to do previously. I rewrote it and then cut it by more than a third, so we'd have ample time for questions if you have any. It's important that you understand the source, and the only thing about me I'd like you to imitate is I hope you live long enough to have silver hair. I have some notions based on what I've learned the hard way in 35 years of doing investment brokerage, but a lot of things that I try are bogus. A lot of things that I believe are not accurate. My wife is on speed dial. She can confirm that in case you're curious. In the last year, I've dialed 1,500 millionaires who will not do business with me. However, our team has been fortunate. We seem to be generating better than $100,000, better than $1 million a year in terms of revenues. So I'm going to tell you some assumptions that I've got. You don't have to buy my assumptions, but you should be aware of them. And then I'll tell you 10 things that I think agents and brokers make mistakes on. So I'm a man of faith, and probably many of you are also people of faith. We may not agree on the particular faith, but it does make a difference if you think there are consequences. And my point here is not to talk you into my particular version of spirituality. But in America, there are many of us who believe in a story out of a book called Genesis. So once upon a time in a land far, far away, in theory, I wasn't there, I'm not that old, but in theory, there was this Jewish guy out in the middle of the desert. He's minding his own business, and the creator of the universe talks to him. I wasn't there, but this goes the story. And allegedly, the God of the universe said, Abraham, I'm going to bless you. And Abe, it's not a matter of more and more for me and mine. Abe, I'm going to bless you so that you can bless all the peoples of the earth. So people who he considered dogs, he was supposed to bless. That's the story. Jewish friends, Christian friends believe that story. The Abrahamic covenant says that people our gifts and our talents are only good to the extent that they help other people. But we're real estate people, whether you're Christians, Jews, Hindus, animists, whatever. As real estate people, we've said that the client comes first. We have a fiduciary responsibility to serve our clients. The client's interest comes ahead of our own. So if we do our job right, we bless the people around us. We bless the people who eat differently, who cook differently, who worship differently, who don't worship at all. Our job is to be a blessing to others. So that's something that you may or may not buy, but that's part of my notion. Second thing that I believe is that money is a great slave, but it's a terrible master. When we're selling houses, when we're selling income properties, when we're leasing space, lots of people are interested in money, but money is not necessarily the most important thing. So I wrote a book. I'm a legend in my own mind. I wrote a book, you know, wahoo. Many people are going to read the book because they want to learn how to build wealth. And frankly, many of you already know that. I wrote the book because I wanted to talk to people about legacy. Legacy doesn't mean you give $1 gazillion away. Legacy is what people think and say and do because of your influence. Whether you die with $10 trillion or 10 cents in a hole, you're going to leave a legacy. Please don't leave it soon. But the legacy is built by how you treat people, what you say, what you do, by living out your values. So legacy is something that I think is important. So those are my 3 assumptions. Now, I'm going to have 10 things that seem to me to be true. One of the first ones is expecting things to be easy is a mistake. I'm going to suggest that everything that you do that's worthwhile is hard. Being a spouse, being a good spouse is hard. Being a good agent is hard. Being a good parent is hard. And real estate agency, it's the wrong job for most people. Dare I say it? It's the wrong job for most people who have real estate licenses. I'm going to suggest to you that if you don't love the grind, if you don't love the boring stuff of the job, get out. There's some place that needs your skills. I don't know what it is. The first real estate seminar that I went to that was taught by CCIM, the guy said, you're wasting your time. It's daycare for adults. Fire most of your clients. Sounded good to me. I didn't have any clients. In San Diego, there's a thing called the Circle of Excellence. So the San Diego Association of Realtors has several thousand members. The top 5% do 62% of the business. Well, that's nice of us who are in the top 5%. The other piece of that means that 95% of the people do 38% of the business. I don't know what it's like where you are, but there's a lot of people in San Diego County. They're not making minimum wage after, they deal with their costs. If that's the case, maybe another hobby is right. So I hope since you're here, since you're investing in yourself, daycare for adult, you may know those people, but hopefully that's not you. So once upon a time, somebody I cared about went to Weight Watchers. And in Weight Watchers, once a week you show up and you weigh in. And I would ask my friend, so what was the score? And essentially that meant, were you up a few ounces? Boo hiss. Or were you down a few ounces? Yay, hooray. The second question was a more important question. I said, what was the talk? And at Weight Watchers, The social accountability is part of it, but the other part is the support. Each week at Eat Weight Watchers, there's some man or some woman who stands up front and kind of says, rah, rah, you can do it. And they tell a little story. They tell about a point score. They tell something that's encouragement. And my friend said, it's hard. Okay. There was a lady in Weight Watchers, and apparently more than half the people who attend Weight Watchers are ladies. And she said, it's hard to lose some weight. And the moderator said, yes, it is. And it's hard being morbidly obese. It's hard to lose the weight. It's hard to keep the weight. Pick your hard. So if you think things are easy, if you think that what you say and what you do has no consequence, if you make easy choices, you're going to have a hard life. If you make hard choices, you can have an easy life. So that's the first point, is expecting easy can be a disappointment. The second thing that seems to me to be true is too many of the people that we work with, too many of the people we compete with, confuse intention or potential or activity with delivering sustained superior results. People who served in the military understand that people get promoted are those who have sustained superior results. They're the hot shots who are consistently hot shots. That's who we, if we're in the circle of excellence, if we aim for professionalism, we want to be the go-to woman, the go-to man. Well, human nature is such that many of us judge ourselves by our intention or our potential, or look at how busy I am. I'm a gerbil. Well, many of us, I hope not you, but many of us judge our enemies and our competitors by their flaws. That's, I don't want to say double standard. What's a polite word for double standard? Well, never mind. I'm going to suggest to you that being on the phone brings commission. I'm going to suggest to you typing at your computer does not bring commission. It might be activity, but every time I dial somebody and they tell me no, in effect, I know that I'm a little bit closer to somebody who's going to say yes. Social media for many of us could be like a slot machine. You know, you can make the effort, and once in a while there's a payoff. But for most of us, the social media is not effective. I hope for you it is. God bless you. Again, I'm an old guy. I have a green card for the 21st century. I'm not a citizen. I'm here legally, but I'm not fluent in a lot of the technology. One of my coaches said to me, the market doesn't care what you know. The market cares what you produce. So my second point is confusing intention or potential or activity with sustained superior results. We get paid to get results. So the third point that I'm going to suggest is a person who chases two rabbits catches none. A different way to say it is I'm going to say avoid being a generic, be a brand name. So I'm going to tell you some rude truth. There's some of the folks in my side of the arena, the commercial investment folks, they're kind of snooty. You know, they think they're better than average. I hope there's no residential agents that are like that, but unfortunately, some of the people in my arena are less than gracious, less than realistic. But even in the commercial investment arena, there's too many of us who underestimate the value of our time. I'm pretty important. They can wait on me. I don't have to be on time. There are too many of us who think we're much more charming than we are. No residential agents ever do that, I'm sure. There's too many people in my arena who presume on their clients, and there are too many people who chase low probability confetti. For example, you need a lease? Hey, I can do that. You want to sell a fourplex? Sure, I got a license for that. Want to buy a gas station? I know how to find you one of those. Let me go chase confetti. Let's go do, and they fritter time away. And they settled for being almost good enough instead of relentless pursuit of excellence. So the person who chases two rabbits catches none. If you're going to do this, put your whole body in, do the hokey pokey. So the fourth thing that seems important to me is being a delusional optimist instead of living out the Stockdale paradox. What's the Stockdale paradox? Well, that's what I ask. So in Vietnam, whether it was a mistake or not, there were lots of death, lots of destruction, lots of horrible things. There was one fellow who was captured. There were thousands of people who were captured. But the guy who was the highest ranking US military officer was James Stockdale. The story is told, and I believe it's true, that he was captured, spent 7 years in the Hanoi Hilton, and allegedly was tortured more than 20 times. And he survived. And Jim Collins interviewed him at one point. The guy wrote Good to Great. And he said, how did you do it, Admiral Stockdale? And Admiral Stockdale said, well, I faced the brutal reality of the worst facts. And I developed and maintained an unshakable faith that I would ethically triumph. Stockdale told himself that, yeah, they broke me yesterday. I gave away secrets that I shouldn't have. I turned in some of my folks. I betrayed my country, but I'm going to prevail. Stockdale believed that he would get out, and Stockdale believed that the time as a prisoner of war would be the defining moment of his life. And in fact, it was. He and his wife wrote a book. She wrote a chapter. He wrote a chapter. He wrote a chapter. She wrote a chapter. And they talked about, there was a long period of time with despair. Neither one of them knew he was going to die or not. All the evidence indicated that he would never get out alive. But they maintained a faith that he would prevail. Parallel thought, different prison. In World War II, the Nazis imprisoned and killed millions of Jews. One fellow was Viktor Frankl. He wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. He survived one of the nastiest concentration camps. And Viktor Frankl said, if you've got a purpose, you can survive. In his Man's Search for Meaning, if you only got one sentence out of the book, it would be that if you understand your why, you can put up with almost any what. There's a lot of what we do that's not fun. There's a lot of what we do where we're taken for granted. There's a lot of what we do where people think our time doesn't matter. They think any idiot could do it. And well, you're the idiot who they happen to be talking to. Kids, marriages, flat tires, lots of things go on. And you got no guarantee that you're going to get paid again, much less get paid before the next mortgage payment is due. There are brutal realities in our business, but if you have an unshakable faith, then you could do well. So Jim Collins was interviewing Stockdale, and he said, so how did you become such an optimist? And Stockdale grabbed Jim's shoulder and he said, young man, it was the optimist who died. The optimist who said, they will let us out by Christmas. They didn't. They'll let us out by Easter. They didn't. They'll let us out by the 4th of July. They didn't. The optimist died. Stockdale said, you've got to face the brutal reality and have confidence that you're going to prevail ethically in spite of it. So that's more than half of the things that I think agents make mistakes on. The fifth one is not valuing yourself and or your clients enough to get coached to do the deliberate practice to be uncomfortable while developing superior skills and expert knowledge. So this is going to be strange to you, but bear with me. So the bride of my youth likes to dance, and she's pretty good at it. I, on the other hand, am a klutz, and I have no sense of rhythm. But this weekend, I danced around a trash can, and I danced around a trash can more than once. I danced around a trash can repeatedly to try to get good at something relatively simple. Slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. I looked really silly in my living room dancing around a trash can. But that's part of what it took to look good on the dance floor when we go on the Alaskan cruise, which matters to her. I have no romantic involvement with the trash can, but in order to do what she cares about, that's what I'm aiming to do. So deliberate practice. Malcolm Gladwell says that become an expert takes 10,000 hours of deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is not doing what you're already good at. It's not 10 years of doing the same thing over and over and over that you're good at. Deliberate practice is trying something on the ice skating rink and falling on your ooh, and then getting up and trying it again and falling ooh. And you see somebody in the stands and you get up again, you try it again, and and then you try it again. And you almost get it right. You try it again and you fail, and you try it again and it doesn't hurt so much. Boy, I'm really sore. Try it again. 10,000 hours. When you get good at one thing, that's no longer deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is doing something you're not yet good at. One of my buddies, somebody who I admire, used to be a professional golfer. And for years, he would spend 5 hours a day out on the golf course practicing the shots that he wasn't very good at. And then the next day, he'd go out and practice something else that he wasn't very good at. He made a living as a professional golfer because he would do the things, he would try to master the things that were just beyond his reach. Related thought is, if you don't have an assistant, you are one. And assistants probably don't make as much as the people who are high producers. If you don't have an assistant, you might consider getting one. So I have a CCIM. I taught CCIM. I think it's a great thing. It's not a perfect thing, but it's pretty lucrative. The CCIM, I made an extra $1 million 5 years after I had it. And the CCIM, the skills that it gave me enabled me to prescribe for problems I couldn't even diagnose before. CCIM, Certified Commercial Investment Member. If you're going to do commercial investment real estate, it's worth doing. If you're going to sell luxury houses or townhomes or Airbnb, you don't need it. If you're going to work with seniors, you don't necessarily need it. But whatever your specialty is, get the designation. Go big or go home. If you're going to do it, Martin Luther King said to people, if you're a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, be the best brain surgeon. Now, some of you love your spouse and you got to get a job, and this is not necessarily the best job, but you got kids to feed and you have no aspirations other than to stay married until you die. That's good. But if you want to have outrageous success, love the grind, be willing to pay the price, get really good at it. I started with coaching. I was reasonably good, more than 20 years into it. I hate to admit it. I hadn't made 100 cold calls in my career. I got a coach, my income tripled. So coaching is good, and the coach doesn't just pat you on the back. The coach, if she or he is good, will try to help you figure out what you want to do and try to help you get there. But you need to stretch. Okay, we're coming down to most of the things that have to do with the agent. I don't know what it's like in your office, but in my office, there's a tendency for some people to give me a good excuse instead of persisting until we get a great result. You didn't see it, but there's a lady who makes my life much easier. She does things that I'm not fluent at. And she is really persistent at helping me get a great result. She doesn't say, well, I called them and they didn't call me back. I emailed them and they didn't do it. The only partner I ever had who outworked me would call somebody 5 times a day if he needed an answer and they weren't giving it to them. I don't know about you, that's slightly uncomfortable for me. So I'm going to take a risk here. If I offend you, please forgive me for this. But my elderly grandmother, she said things before politically correct speech was expected. And roughly speaking, talking about beauty contests, I know it's old. My grandmother is old, forgive me. She says, how many ladies really are competing for the Miss Congeniality? Somebody's in a beauty contest wants to get the big ribbon. So when you're talking with the other side, or when you're talking with the banker, when you need something to get the deal done and you've emailed and they haven't responded, you called and they haven't responded, you just give up and the deal fails because you're too polite to be assertive? I hope not. Last way I'll make the point. So the distraught mom is crying. She's in tears. It's horrible. The firemen have rushed in and they haven't seen the fireman. And at one point, the fireman comes out empty-handed, says, ma'am, I'm sorry. It was really hot and smoky in there. I'm really sorry. No, that's not what the firefighter says. The firefighter comes out with the infant in the arms, and the firefighter hands it to the mom and said, ma'am, here's your baby. You and I are paid to get results. We're not paid to give good excuses. A good excuse is easy to settle for, but a good excuse doesn't get you a commission. So that's 6. And let's see what 7 is. 4 priorities. I hope there's nobody in your office who fritters time away. I hope there's nobody in your office who loses files. I hope there's nobody in your office who gets distracted by the flattering client. I hope it's never happened to you that you've looked at the beautiful property that was overpriced and spent months chasing it. I hope you've never taken a listing that was not financeable and after months you gave up. Instead, I hope that you're focused on the results, the probability brokerage. And in particular, when going through the CCIM, something that was passed on to me, which I've come to believe is an income property, the people are first. If you tick off your client, you can be great, and they're not going to, if they don't trust you, if they don't like you, you're probably not going to close. Second, the financing. If it's ugly as homemade sin and you can get a loan, you can probably sell it. If it's beautiful and you can't get a loan, it's going to be really hard. You're only looking at all cash buyers and they want a discount, 5 or 10% or whatever. And the third is the property. So we've closed 500 properties. And frankly, a lot of the properties that we sold, you'd think those are ugly heaps. They make a lot of money, but they're not glamorous. They're not where you'd want your mother-in-law to live or your kids to live. But they are affordable housing for people who don't have your skills, who don't have your education, who don't have your character. But somebody explained to me once upon a time, the person who works in the flower shop makes a nice living and they're nice and it smells good and people are polite, people are happy, and that's a good thing. One of my clients made a living underneath the San Diego Bay, underneath the destroyer where he was scraping barnacles off. And he was like 2 or 3 feet away from the bottom. And once upon a time, something shifted and the destroyer was resting on his chest. And he was trapped. He could not move the destroyer. Now, as it turned out, he got out. And you know, that guy made more than $100,000 a year. The plumber makes more than the person who does really nice things in a place that smells really good with really polite people. If there's stress, you get paid more. If it's hard, you get paid more. If it's high risk, you get paid more. Straight commission produces more millionaires than working at the DMV. The DMV is really secure, but that's not a way to wealth and necessarily high impact. And I'm going to take a risk here. I warned you up front. I was a person of faith. So I'm going to cite something that many people consider valuable, and some people even consider it inspired. Whether you consider it inspired or not, I would invite you to consider the possibility of reading a page a day out of a little tiny book. It's actually, for many people, part of a larger book. There's a book of Proverbs, and the story goes that King David, 4,000 years ago, compiled these little couplets, these little anecdotes, these little funny things that people believed were true. And there's 1 billion people around the world, or maybe 2 billion people, who think that the book of Proverbs is pretty important. But regardless of your faith, whether or not you believe it or not, if you read a page a day, there's 30 Proverbs. So on the main idea from the book of Proverbs is fools reject reproof and discipline, and wise people seek it out. All feedback is a gift. Some of it is useful. That's not in Proverbs per se, but being willing to accept advice and act on it makes you wise. Scoffing at correction makes you foolish. One of the verses that was in the thing today was verse 29. Somebody who is slow to anger has great understanding, but he who has a hasty temper exalts folly. Do you want to deal with hotheads? Most people don't. If you're trying to figure out who do I want to deal with, and you go through the Proverbs day by day, it will tell you these are the characteristics of a jerk that people don't like. Liars, bluffers, people who are rude, people who exploit. Those are hard clients to work with. But it also tells you who are the people that are nice and are easy to serve. So whether you choose that behavior or not, if you read the book of Proverbs 1 page a day, it might help you in sorting your clients. It certainly helped me sort my clients. So that's poor priorities, using your time and your money on things that aren't likely to pay off. So those are the 7 things that I think are really important for agents. But I'm an income property broker, and many of you are investors and or will be investors. So the last have to do with investor mistakes. Many millionaires expect to be treated as special. So the people that I serve for a living, they can go into the luxury car dealer, and 3 hours later, they can come out with a new Mercedes. They can come out with a new Lexus. They can come out with, some of them, a new Rolls Royce. Their car dealer, Nordstrom, their airline, their gold, platinum people, they get special deals. At least they think they're special. And because you're a millionaire, you could afford to pay for a Nordstrom shopper. And it will probably fit you well, and the colors will be good, and there's nothing wrong with Nordstrom shoppers. The investors who close overlook insults. They don't haggle when we get within 0.25% or 0.5% of good deal. We don't haggle because they've made the mistake in the past where they missed a deal by 0.5%, and then 3 years later they looked up and said, the person who bought the deal doubled their equity, and I got a really good story about treated rudely, and they doubled their equity. So being a millionaire gets you into the game, but being a millionaire doesn't get you special treatment. Residential agents know that there's multiple offers. I'm not special. I just have silver hair. Since COVID hit San Diego, I've closed a little over 60 deals in the last 2 years. Every deal that I've closed, below $1 million, above $5 million, every deal that I've closed, buy side, sell side, every deal I've closed has had multiple offers. The fact that somebody's a millionaire is great. You're not special. You just get into the game. Doesn't mean you're going to win the game. It means you get into the game. So that's the first thing that I think investors do that's detrimental. The second thing has to do with delusional thinking is a mistake, as opposed to a granular understanding of what's real. So every month, some novice calls me and they describe their fantasy, and their fantasy boils down to, I'm going to find them a rich fool who's going to blunder property into their lap. And out of them, who I've never dealt with, and the other 20,000 people I've met in the last 40 years, that I'm going to make sure they get the special deal. You know what? That's delusional thinking. Once a week, I tell some millionaire, I understand what you want, and something like that may come up again, And when it does, there would be multiple offers. Your mom is right. You're special. You're not that special. The folks who close understand what's there. So if whatever your market is, whether you lease industrial or whether you sell houses, you should know how many 4-bedroom, 2-bath houses are there in this zip code and how many of them sell in a year. And somebody who needs a 7-bedroom house, how likely is it? So when somebody says to you, I'm looking for, and they describe your fantasy, you can say, sure, that's easy. We can do that. Or you can say, you know what? I'm really good. My magic's not that deep. I don't think I can find you one of those. And if I can, there's probably going to be competition for it. If you have a granular understanding of what's real and somebody insists, no, I've got to have the perfect deal, you can say, great, I sure hope you get it. I'm sorry, I can't do that, but I hope you get it. I'm really cheering for you. And forgive me, I've got another call on any return. So best of luck. See you later. Let me congratulate you when it goes, but I've got somebody else that I need to take care of. So thanks. Don't waste your time on what's not likely. Another challenge, many investors say, you know, when I go to my car dealer and explain a problem, they cut me some slack. When I'm at the counter and I want the upgrade from coach to first class, I can use my frequent flyer miles and I can get upgraded. And I just need the other guy to give me a $5,000 discount because I'm special, I'm rich, I'm really successful in my job. So just get them to give me a little something extra. What they don't understand is the millionaire on the other side could easily be richer and frankly will never deal with them again. The car dealer hopes that there will be several transactions in the next generation. The people who are selling income property will probably never see, maybe never talk to, and probably never do another transaction. So if you go to Nordstrom, they're hoping they're going to spend $100,000 between now and the time you die. And Nordstrom takes back tires. Nordstrom doesn't sell tires, but Nordstrom has taken back tires. But if you want a money back guarantee on an income property, you're not the one who's going to close. So because of the nature of what you do, you've known maybe longer than I have that they're unseen but real competitors. And not all investors believe that. They think because I'm special enough to buy a retail consumer piece of consumer asset and pay a ridiculous price, that I should be able to get something special because I'm rich. And you're competing only against rich people. You don't compete against poor people. Okay, the 10th thing, we promised you 10 things. So the 10th thing is the lack of courage to pull the trigger. So occasionally you might have heard you want to buy low and sell high. Well, in the spring of 2020, we had this thing called COVID. And there were 3 or 4 months in San Diego County where there were a few deals that sold cheaper in 2020 than it did in 2019. And lots of people wanted to buy hundreds of properties at a bigger discounted rate. We had a little over 300 properties that sold in 2020. There were 6 that sold cheaper in 2020 than they did in 2019. So that means there were about 300 that sold for more. And you have showed people property where they said, I'm looking for, and you came back and said, hey, I got it for you. You said you wanted A, B, C, D, E. I got all that. We got to win. And they said, yeah, well, can I have F? Can I get it for $2,000 less? Would they throw in a pedicure? Can I get a free trip to Hawaii? And they don't close. You have to have the courage to close. Lots of us make mistakes. I heard a talk one time from a fellow that said, if you can't afford to make a mistake, you can't afford to make anything. Everybody makes mistakes. If you bought stocks and you sold stocks, you either bought too high or you either bought too soon or you bought too late. No matter what you did, there was a slightly better time to buy or to sell. Everybody makes mistakes. The wise people will learn as they think about it. So Peter Drucker, who was maybe our nation's best management guy, said that part of what he would do is he would analyze a problem and then he would write down, I did X because I expected Y. And then 6 months later, he would look at it and see what happened. And frequently it didn't work. Sometimes it did. But over the course of 40 years, he developed wisdom. And several people have done that, reflecting on what happened. So you learn not by making a mistake. You learn by thinking about it, recognizing it, and trying to do something different. The wisest people learn from other people's mistakes. So background, in San Diego County in the last 30 years, San Diego apartments have gone up 8% a year, including 4 recessions for 30 years. So somebody who walked away from a deal because they were 0.5% away from what they wanted, in effect, they were assuming that they could find a deal that good in a couple of weeks. Usually didn't work. So you came to hear 10 things. That's 10 things. Oh, wait, there's a bonus. There's more. This is kind of like being in the fair. But wait, there's more. So because you're here, you get an 11th thing. So investors sometimes make a mistake when they settle for the safe dime instead of the almost certain dollar. So in San Diego County, things go up a lot. There's some people, within the last week, I've talked to somebody who said, you know what, my property is free and clear. I got no debt. It doesn't get any better than this. Well, maybe it does. Depends on what your objective. If you want the lowest risk, free and clear is a really good thing. Just in case you care about your grandkids and you would like for them to have more wealth, just in case you're going to live more than 2 years, if you want more income, then trading up might be a good deal. So free and clear is a good thing, but free and clear is not automatically the best for everybody. The people who, let's say they've got $1 million free and clear property, and let's say that they get a 5% cash on cash return. That's unlikely in San Diego, but let's keep it simple. Let's say it does. So their building generates $80,000 a year. There's no mortgage, but after paying the taxes and all that stuff, there's an 8% return, or a 5% return. That's great. And by the way, their $1 million building next year goes up 8%. So you get an 8% appreciation and 5% cash on cash. Hey, 13%. Wahoo, that's pretty good. Their twin brother, if they sold their $1 million building and they bought a bigger building, so they bought a $3 million building, borrowed $2 million. So they bought a $3 million building, and the $3 million building goes up 8%. Well, let's say 3 times 8 is 24. So if it goes up $240,000, 240 is better than 130. And oh, by the way, there'll be some cash return. The banks do the financing in such a way that you have to have a positive return for 5 units and above. So maybe they put $1 million down, they only get a $20,000 cash return. Only 2%? Well, that's awful. I was getting $50,000 before. Yeah, but if you get 24% on your equity and 2% on your cash, that's 26%. And oh, by the way, you pay the loan down. A $2 million loan is going to pay down about $30,000. That's about 3% of your equity. And by the way, if you've got some extra depreciation because you got an extra $2 million and you've got some interest costs, which you didn't have before, you're probably going to have a taxable loss, and taxable loss means a tax refund. So the person who's got $1 million free and clear property, maybe they get a 13% of return. That's really good. Would you rather have 30% or 13%? So investors make mistakes. I've seen and I've made a lot more mistakes we're going to talk about, but those are the ones which I was hoping would be worth your while. So I want to thank you for investing in yourself. I'm sure there's a lot more fun things you could do that sit in front of a video screen and watch an old white guy yammer on, but you were here. And I hope that you will benefit. I hope that your family, I hope that your clients will be better off because some of what you've heard. I don't want you to imitate me, but I would invite you to consider some of these ideas and maybe test some of them. and hopefully things will be better for you and your clients. So they told me that I could yammer on for an hour, but it had to be done in an hour. So I cut this thing so I'd have extra time. And you're going to get my contact information after the program. If you want to call me or email me, I'm glad to engage. And I appreciate your time. So with that, I think we'll bring back our moderator. We'll do some question and answers and go from there. Thank you very much for being here. It's been a blessing to serve you.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. This is Mr. Lee. Thank you for that informative educational webinar. For the audience, if some of you have questions, feel free to write it in the chat box and I will direct it to Mr. Moore. One thing I do learn myself is Mr. Moore has a lot of experience. Rather than focusing on the specifics of a commercial transactions, I have learned a lot from you just on life in general. How to approach a client, what are some of our priorities, and the great work, not being delusional. And sometimes we have a feeling going into a transaction thinking we'll close the sale or whatever, and then if a client wants A, B, C, D, E, and we have found that he come up with F. And your math is really good. I can see that you have been in CCIM for a long time, and then since you are faculty on the CCIM courses, that you can calculate all these things in your head on the percentage return from a $1 million property, let's say link up on a 1031 exchange, or do some other transaction to help the client make more. So that's something that we all need to learn from. So
I'm gonna ask a favor. My father is not here, so I'm just Terry. My dad was Mr. Moore. I'm just Terry. I understand the deferential, and let's make it easy. I'm not special.
You are special. Okay, Terry, then that's fine. So I'm waiting for the audience. Does the audience have any questions? I'll give them a minute or so, but I myself personally have a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
In this COVID environment, a lot of people, two things. I don't understand why a lot of people are experiencing, and I'm experiencing myself, the great resignation. A lot of people are not going to work. I don't know why there are more jobs out there than people want to apply for, and I don't know what they live on. Why are housing prices keep on going up? Where does the money come from?
Great question.
No.
So your audience knows more about home sales than I do. I've in 35 years, I've done a couple of home transactions, but in San Diego County, government policies have created a housing shortage. It's not fair, but it's true. In San Diego County and in the state of California, we haven't built enough for people to graduate from college. So the city of Houston has 1/4 as many people as the state of California. So the state of California is immense and Houston is much smaller, but the city of Houston has built more condos and more apartments than the state of California for 10 years in a row. So in San Diego County, we built half as many as we need. If your kids graduated from Stanford and they're making $100,000 a year, we're building apartments for them. But your neighbor's kids who didn't get out of junior college, we're not building for them. We build only fancy stuff. So in San Diego County, our scariest zip codes, the ones that your spouse would think the men get raped and the women get killed, the scariest zip code in San Diego County has 97% occupancy. There's 100,000 heads of households work in San Diego County who cannot find a place to live.
Wow.
They live in Riverside County, they live in Imperial Valley, they live in Baja. We have a screaming shortage of rentals here. If we double our apartment construction for a decade, we'll still have a rental shortage. So there's janitors here who become millionaires, not because they're that much smarter, but they happen to be in a place where government created a housing shortage. So people here who buy property, they're going to get pretty good rents. And if they clean up, paint up, fix it up, they will get more. We have 350,000 apartments in San Diego County. Most of them have the original kitchens and bathrooms. I don't know how many ladies are in the audience, and I don't know how many husbands in the audience, but most ladies are not really keen on a 50-year-old kitchen. Some of the houses in our zip code, you know, they remodel every 10 years. If you buy a used apartment building and you clean up, paint up, fix it up, you will get higher income people from sort of that zip code, and you'll be able to rent it for more. So here, because there's a screaming demand and there's not enough supply, prices have gone up. When COVID began here, the federal government said you don't have to pay your rent and the landlady can't evict you. The state said you don't have to pay your rent and your landlady can't evict you. The San Diego County said you don't have to pay your rent and the landlord can't evict you. And the city of San Diego said you don't have to pay your rent and the landlord can't evict you. And 95% of our tenants paid.
Wow.
I was so afraid, I thought our business would drop by 2/3. It dropped by about 1/3. And there were some people who thought, I'm never going to get rent again. I'm going to lose my building. I talked with the two best mortgage brokers who do apartments in San Diego County. And I said, how many of your clients are behind in your mortgage payment? And they both said, none.
Wow.
No landlords were behind in their rents, in their mortgage payments. So our fears are one thing, but the facts were different. Now in Detroit, they're bulldozing property because there's not enough employed families to occupy what's there. But in Southern California, our governments have had, not in my backyard, at the city council, people have said it'd be too crowded, you know, let's not have extra people here. Let them live somewhere else, anywhere else. But in Southern California, we have a screaming rental housing shortage. And that's why the governor has done a variety of different things to try to get more housing. But it's different from single family houses. Last thing, in the city of San Diego has told the state of California that 80% of the new housing in the next decade is going to be multifamily. In the next decade, we're not going to build enough houses. We're not going to build enough townhomes. So the single family house here will become more precious because the 20-year-olds will become 50-year-olds, and they're going to want a house in the suburbs. They may not want it now, but 3 kids and 2 RVs, and you know, it will happen. But we're going to build lots of other stuff, but we'd have to triple our rental housing construction for more than a decade to get caught up. But we're going to cut down on the single family homes. So we're squeezing the balloon a little bit. Thanks for asking.
Terry, another question I have. Marketing and finding clients is probably one of the challenges new agents have, or even older agents, short of the network connection we might have. And I was a little surprised that you still want to do cold call. I'm one of the old timer too, and I used to do cold call, but now I haven't done that in a long time. Do you find cold call? Now you are doing commercial, so you use something like a CoStar to find out who the property owner is and see whether the investors still want to buy a bigger building or sell his existing building. How do you deal with the cold call? Do you have a script that you can, you know, kind of share with us your insight?
So I was in the business more than 20 years before I made 100 calls. So you don't want to imitate me. I did too many things the hard way. But in my weird and peculiar ways, you can download, your title rep can tell you, here are the people who own the houses, industrial apartments, whatever. And there are ways where you can get phone numbers for many of them, and emails for many of them. I actually had some virtual assistants, and I had 7 years of virtual assistant going through trying to get phone numbers and emails from some of these owners. I'm so old-fashioned. This is not literally true. This is kind of self-deprecating humor. My phone number is 1031. My email is 1031. Somebody asked me yesterday, how did you get 1031 in a phone number? I said, I made a deal with Alexander Graham Bell. I was the first guy to bring a computer into a commercial real estate office. I've sent 1 million postcards.
Wow.
There's 6,000 people that I want to do business with, and I've sent 1 million postcards.
Wow.
So I'm a guy who composts banana peels. I compost coffee grounds, and I send out 100,000 pieces of junk mail a year. So I'm a conflicted guy. You don't want to copy me, but I've written books. I'm an I'm a legend in my own mind. I've written a book. It's down there in the corner. And I've written a bunch of articles. And some people maybe even read them. But,
I read them.
Yeah. So I've become an expert, and I'm mostly reaching out to people who know me. Some of them have gotten offers from me. Some of them have never talked to me. Some of them I've represented. But, you know, there's some of the people in the audience who've handed out flags or cookbooks or done other things. You know, they've been a presence for weeks, months, days, years. And if you've been around and you reach out, and I've had people say, wow, I was wondering why you're mad at me. You never called me before. And so I'm not going to be doing this till I'm 90. I'm probably going to stop sometime in the next, well, some number of years, but I'm trying to focus more on fewer and fewer clients who are more likely to work with me. And every week that I call, there are several people that I respectfully put into a category that boils down to don't call them again. And then there are other people who are a bit more responsive that says call them a bit more frequently. It's not very complicated. It's a simple business, not an easy business. It's a simple business. People who are fluent in Facebook and such can make that work. I can document ways to spend money that weren't effective. But for me, both the buyers and sellers are older. So the average seller is probably over 70 and the average buyer is probably more than 50. So I'm not working with a nice young couple that needs a house for their kids. I serve rich people. Poor people don't buy apartment buildings, but I know who my clients are, and I just try to stay in touch with them.
Okay. Looks like we don't have any question in the chat box, so I'm going to do the closing.
Thank you.
On behalf of West and Gabriel Valley Board, we appreciate Mr. Terry Moore and preparing a well-planned lesson for us, 10 mistakes. And I'm sure that some of us can take this home and incorporate as part of our life lesson. I do learn a lot from these sessions, and I appreciate you spending the time. Finally, we got a chance to talk.
Very good.
So thanks for coming. Thanks for taking my invite, and we've been communicating back and forth. And I hope our people learn something from Terry's presentation.
So the handout that you're going to provide electronically has my contact information. So if somebody chooses to reach out after the session, that would be wonderful. I wish you well. Thank you. Be blessed. Be a blessing.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to close the meeting for today's session. But one thing I would like to mention, and some of you might be interested, since the market has changed a little bit, so for some of you who might be interested in some distressed properties, we have a seminar coming up on June 28th, hosted by Jeannie Field. I don't know if you know her. She's a very interesting instructor. I have attended her lesson in the past, and I enjoy her teaching. The class is called Short Sales and Foreclosures. As I was talking about that, there's a lot of real estate out there that's going up in price. On the other hand, some sellers or some owners might not be able to continue to afford whatever they were doing or they were living in because they lost a job or whatever. So this market might open up again. I don't know, but actually it might be good for us to prepare ourselves, gain the knowledge, attend a session. So pick up some germs of wisdom like today we got from Terry. So if you want to attend a class, the class is a full day class from 9 till 5. There will be lunch. So please sign up quickly with Fong on the email that you send out. And then we'll see you guys on June 28th. I myself plan to attend also. So with that in mind, thank you all for coming to this session. Terry, Erica, I appreciate you guys coming in. And finally, we got this done. Thank you for your time.